Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Resilient Advisor Podcast. This is part of the Tactical Market Strategy series, which once again comes during a unique time in the market with some uniquely positioned guests. The team from Tematica Research is here. Lenore Hawkins over in Italy in the hot zone. Chris Versace in DC. We would be remiss if we did not start with you, Lenore. What's going on in northern Italy today?
Yes, well, first, apologizing for doing this from in a car. So things in Italy are definitely getting worse. The case count continues to skyrocket. Things are really tightening down. So last week and even this weekend, you could walk around a bit outside. I mean, you had to stay far away from other people. Today, the police are driving around with speakers that are just basically telling everyone, get back inside your house. I'm in a car right now because an elderly neighbor needs some medical equipment that was supposed to be shipped to the house. And where I live, all of the shipments are stopping. They're not being able to deliver to the homes. So have come to the delivery company, their depot, to try and pick it up. And there's a huge line of people all wearing masks to try and do the same thing. The infrastructure is struggling right now. And as we saw, we're probably likely to see that elsewhere as well. So apologies again for a strange location for this.
Well, Jay, you have to love the Marine-like attitude to adapt, improvise, and overcome.
What you gonna do, right?
Yeah. So do you find when you're out, are most people wearing masks?
Everyone's wearing a mask. Although I have to point out, it's a little ridiculous because they're all wearing masks, but then they'll take their hand, drop the mask down to like smoke a cigarette, or you know, I don't, just to like answer the phone. They'll literally drop the mask to answer the phone, and then back up with the mask, which is completely counterproductive.
Yeah. So here in Georgia, there have been runs at Costco's and Walmart's, and we're seeing that across the country. Are there still food stocks in Italy this far into the problem?
Yes, we've had no problems with that. Thank God. Part maybe because the region I live in, a lot of food, that shouldn't be an issue for us. The supplies, like just basic supplies. I mean, I know the Americans seem to be having panics about toilet paper. We haven't had any issues with that so far. So we're good. Thank you.
Well, you know, it's interesting you say that because I was out yesterday around 6:30 in the morning, just getting some, last minute supplies. And when I walked through the store, all the meat was gone, all the chicken was gone, toilet paper, paper towel, cleaning products, and all that stuff. But there were ample people in the store, workers who had, massive amounts of boxes to take care of. So I agree. I don't think we're going to see a supply issue. I think the bigger concern is that people get spooked, they panic, and then they go on a run. And I think what we're seeing, I think President Trump and the Vice President Pence were making comments last night and this morning about the food supply is fine. No need to use your you-know-what. Calm and orderly is the way to go.
Yeah, I think so. I think from what we're reading too, just everywhere you look, it doesn't look like just the basic supplies of life are going to be just fine.
Yeah.
The ability to get them, to get some of them might be another story though.
Yeah.
So another issue that I'm seeing here, at least in the southern part of the United States, is I don't think people are taking it as serious as they should. I see folks going to movies. I see people not doing social distancing. I see parties going on.
It's insane.
So
I think this is right. So I think this is why you're seeing in Illinois, Ohio, New York City, Los Angeles, you're seeing, rather than people self-quarantining, the number of places that they can go are being shut. And this is everything from restaurants, bars, movie theaters, and the like. But
Starbucks.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's been no shortage of companies that are coming out and trying to restrict either the number of stores and locations they have open, the hours they're working, or the services they're providing. And you're right, Starbucks is one of the ones that has said, hey, look, we're happy if you guys want to come in and pick up.
We'll give you coffee, but you got to go
down.
Yeah. You got to keep people apart.
I mean, let's be honest, of all the things that no one wants to run out of, coffee is one of the big ones.
Don't touch my coffee, man.
So Chris, what else are you seeing from a company response and what opportunities are being presented?
So, I mean, just dovetailing on what we were saying about Starbucks, whether it's here, hang on, there's no shortage of companies, as you can see here. We really go through this in the daily markets note today with NASDAQ. So if you'll give me a second, Jay, I'll rattle them off. Ready? Here we go. Okay, here we go. So movie theaters, AMC Entertainment, Cinemark, Apple, Peloton, Nike, Urban Outfitters, Under Armour, Columbia Sportswear, all closing stores. Walmart, Kroger, Amazon's, Whole Foods, they are shortening their hours so they can restock, like we were just talking about, but also extra sanitize. Retail, Gap, Lululemon, shortening their hours. Starbucks, we talked about.
Lululemon is now cutting everything. They're going to shut all their stores.
Yeah, and I think candidly that we're going to see a number of companies that are going from limited hours to full closure, particularly those that have big exposure in the malls. So, one of the big questions is going to be, we've seen malls kind of come under pressure with digital shopping. This is only going to exacerbate the situation.
Yeah.
So if you're a company like Simon Properties, I think people are going to be really worried about the future of your business.
Let alone travel companies, like all the Carnival. Cruises,
exactly right.
Airlines.
So you got Royal Caribbean, Carnival Cruise shutting their fleets. American Airlines cut 75% of its international flights March 16th to May 6th. United Airlines is doing another drastic reduction. And we're also seeing a number of international airlines, everybody from British Airways and its parent international airline groups, Ryanair, Air France, and you're even starting to hear about full airports being closed. So this is something that in some respects shouldn't be surprising to a lot of folks. I mean, we saw a lot of the signs weeks ago, and it's been building and building, and now it's arriving. And I think the part that frustrates us is that when you pay attention to the unfolding landscape the way that we do, and you see what is coming, and despite how vocal you try to be about it, there are a lot of people that don't listen. And I think that's to your point, Jay, about people doing parties, going out and these sort of things, doing the exact things that they should not be doing.
And all of this isn't about your health. That's the problem, is it's not necessarily about any one person's health. It's not, right. I'm not doing what I'm doing and I'm not keeping myself quarantined at home because I'm afraid for me. I am afraid for the people that I could affect, or not even somebody that I come in contact with, but somebody I come in contact with, and then they come in contact with somebody else.
Yeah. I think it's
being irresponsible about that is literally going to cost people their lives.
Well, it's part of being a respectful person and part of being a good citizen. Like, do your part, stay home.
We're all in this together, guys.
So, Lenore, one more question about what's going on in Italy, and then let's talk about Fed policy and some potential fiscal policy.
Okay.
So, when folks are quarantined in their homes, the first couple of days, I imagine it's like it is a little unique. You're having a little staycation. I have to imagine that the stress level starts to go up and then precipitously, and then people start to get angry. And so I'm curious if you could speak to what that has looked like over the past 10 days to 14 days there in Italy.
Yeah. So far, we haven't really hit kind of an awful phase yet. And maybe this is just Italy, I don't know. But so over the weekend, we had a couple times where everyone got on their terraces, on their roofs, and started clapping. And it was to thank the healthcare workers. We've got, I heard the other day, or I think it was like Friday, some of my neighbors started singing back and forth. And I'm sure everybody's probably seen these videos. We were just singing back and forth. I'm on my roof trying to get like a workout in. And my neighbors across the way are trying to create like a slalom course for their kids on their terrace as well, because people are losing their minds. But we're also very conscious of just how dangerous this is. What's amazing is how quickly people adjust to the new normal. One of the things Americans are going to be looking forward to is that when you go to the grocery store, you're going to have to wait outside, because they're only going to let a few people in at a time, and you're going to have to stand in these lines where you are significantly distancing yourself from one another. But so far, I think as people appreciate and you realize that this is now going to be the new normal, you realize that what you're doing is saving the lives of people you care about.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a fan of Ray Dalio's work. Love him or hate him, he puts out some great content. And I do have a love-hate relationship with his content as well. But, one of his themes are, sometimes you can't see something that's going to happen because that hasn't happened in your lifetime or the lifetime of your parents.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And that's what this feels like. And you look at what the Fed did last night. Lenore, I want to direct this to you and your macro takeover. I mean, you talk about a bazooka and nothing. We opened up limit down. What's your take on the Fed's response to this once in a multi-generation event?
Well, what we just saw is the Fed take dramatic measures 2 times within 4 days outside of any kind of a normal meeting. This is just full on panic mode, and the market knows it. Plus, what good really is monetary policy going to do when the problem is a complete drop in demand? And you think about what's really going to happen here. You've got small businesses all over the world that are getting no money in. A lot of them are trying to do a really good thing and keep paying their employees to the extent that they can. But where's the money going to come from? And when we're talking about, we're going to get loans or you're going to cut tax rates, taxes apply when you have a profit. They don't apply when you're losing money, right? How much is that going to help? And a loan, okay, so you've just gone, let's see how long this goes, maybe 2 months? You go 2 months without making any money as a business, and now you're going to dump a loan on me? Okay, great. It's got a low interest rate, but good God, how many people are just going to quit? That means how many employees no longer have a job, right? This has got to be a lot more creative than just giving loans at low interest rates.
Yeah, I think there's some other ripple effects too. I mean, you talk about service companies like an Uber, for example, right? Where how do they make their money? By shuttling people around or food around. The food might continue, but the people is probably not going to happen. So they're not going to make any money. And at the same time, their drivers who are now idle capacity are going to sit there and they're not going to earn any money.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a lot of exactly right.
You can't like right now, I can't spend, right? There's no retail places open, so I can't spend other than on food. But eventually, you can't spend because you're not making any money.
Right. And I think, I think there's perhaps at some point going to be a silver lining, which is whether it's 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it turns out to be, a couple things. One, the Fed's efforts today will hopefully help pull us out when things hopefully get back to normal. And what I mean by that is people are about to go their daily lives. I also think, much like we're seeing in China, particularly at the high end with luxury goods, there's been a lot of pent up demand in China because those high end shoppers have not been able to go to the stores. So they're now out in force. So I think that's what will happen. Does it mean that we will get a sharp V-like contraction and rebound? Not sure yet. I think it's really going to play out over time, but I do think there'll be some industries that are going to take a lot longer to come back.
Yeah,
it's definitely a lot of money sloshing around now. How it gets used, only to be determined. Let's talk about other measures that they could take. Again, in this type of national emergency, all this can be pulled. What type of fiscal policies or other policies do you see that could help the economy in general?
So.
There's going to have to be just a ton of government spending. There's going to have to be like infrastructure, which would be great, both technology infrastructure like 5G build out. Our bridges and roads are falling apart. Some spending there would be great. Investing, providing some sort of creative investing where not like a debt kind of a thing, because you don't really want to put a whole lot of debt on an economy that's already struggling, but being able to have the government maybe investing, giving equity instead of debt. Those kinds of things to help get people going again.
Right. But I think that those efforts will only going to be really impactful as the virus just kind of weaves its way through the U.S. And again, we can get back to normal because, to the comment that was made earlier, the Fed is essentially pushing on a string right now by cutting rates and doing everything it's doing. Right. Great. You're doing this. But there's no impact to be had because people, 2/3 of the economy, consumer spending, can't do what they usually do.
Yeah, the economy shut down. I mean, the only thing going right now is the markets. And if we're talking about the markets, keep in mind that according to regulations, you can't have market makers, you can't have employees making a market from home. So
I think that's why
shutdowns.
Well, I think that's part of the reason why, at least up until now, they have tried to have reduced staffs going in, so they can keep going. But if we get Yeah, exactly right. As I think, as we saw this morning, according to the White House, anything and everything is on the table to curb this thing. So more to come is all we can say.
So there's talk in the media here the last 24 hours about potentially shutting down the U.S. markets like we did after 9/11 for a week.
Yeah.
I believe you guys might have different opinions. Do you think that could happen? And what would the implications of that be for investors?
I actually think it would be a good thing.
I agree. I think it would be a good thing. Right now, there is no price discovery. There is, and what you've got some serious problems in the plumbing of the market. Dodd-Frank is making it impossible for the banks to do what they did last time around, where the banks are the ones that are buying these distressed assets. Who's there to buy? The banks are forced to because of the value at risk, right? The banks, according to Dodd-Frank, aren't able to buy because they have to keep their amount at risk low. And when you've got volatility spiking up and then staying high, that changes that value at risk equation. Who's going to buy?
And I think that's also part of the reason why you saw so many banks come out this morning and say, hey, we are suspending our own buybacks because they want to preserve capital to put to work.
They have to. I think it would be a good thing until we get our arms around this. Like right now, we have no idea. We have no idea when this thing is going to stop. We have no idea what the magnitude is. So how do you price anything?
It's kind of like if you see a person who's like spinning out of control, you kind of want to say to them, look,
just stop.
Take a minute, pause, take a breath, absorb everything that's happening, think about it, and then pick it up later. And I think that process for the markets would be very helpful. Because even, like what the Fed did last night, and Lenore made the point about 2 emergency rate cuts before Wednesday's regularly scheduled meeting. Think of the mindset for investors who are going, holy cow, what are they seeing? How bad is it? How bad is it going to get that they have to do that? And they did it again.
And it didn't do any good.
Didn't do any good. That's right. And, one challenge that I think the advisor marketplace has that's really showing its head now is there's a whole generation of financial advisors giving portfolio advice that have never seen a bear market. This is new.
Right. Yes.
Comes in.
Welcome.
Right. And so, but that has some implications. A couple of things I've been encouraging advisors to do is to come up with a rules-based way to start reallocating back into the market.
Yeah.
We don't give advice on this podcast, but it could be from something from the VIX hitting a certain level before you start looking. You need coming back down to a more investable level, or looking at simple 200-day moving averages, just some type of rule so you're not using your gut. You guys have any indicators to consider?
I don't have any specific indicators. What I would say is some advice that I got when I was on the sell side as an equity analyst, which is at times like these, which are really bad, the biggest mistake that an institutional salesperson or a RIA could make is sitting on their hands, not calling their clients, not reaching out. You may not have anything good to say. You might commiserate. You might talk about how, oh, this is happening, I'm experiencing this, whatever. But by picking up the phone and reaching out and being one of the few people to do that, you are going to foster good relationships and solidify existing ones.
That's right.
Well, and we are going to get through this. I mean, we've seen this. We've seen not this exactly, this kind of thing, but we will get our arms around this. There are positive signs coming out of different places around the world where they are getting their arms around it. Yeah, China, South Korea. We're seeing some good signs that this thing can get contained.
Absolutely. And we will definitely get past it. You go and look at the Dow Jones during the Spanish flu pandemic. It struggled and it recovered. And we were coming out of the war. Yeah. So I agree with you guys. That doesn't make these uncertain times, but it does create some opportunities. Let's wrap up with this. Chris, what type of thematic lens can you put on what we see today?
Thematic lens. I would say that a lot of the thematic tailwinds that we see, Jay, are still in place. I mean, if you think about what this really is, and this is not to discount it at all, this is a big disruption, right? But those tailwinds, 5G will continue, right? Yep. Luxury shopping will continue. Shopping online is probably going to accelerate as a result of this. So I think when you step back and you look at these structural changes, these are things that unfold not over 1 month, 3 months, but over quarters and years. So again, not to belittle this, it's going to be a disruption to those themes.
Excellent. Lenore, any final thoughts?
Yeah, look around at where creative solutions are coming from. This morning, I tweeted out that in Italy, we have a company, a 3D printing company, that got an emergency call from the hospitals because the hospitals were running out of valves because they have to replace these valves for the ventilators. What are you going to do? You got a ventilator, you got somebody dying, you don't have a valve. The 3D company brought a bunch of its printers, raced over to the hospital, and is now printing valves on site. These kinds of creative solutions, that's where some interesting things are going to happen when the dust all settles.
Excellent. Hey, I encourage you to follow Tematica Research, Chris and Lenore on Twitter. They put out great content, and make sure you subscribe to the NASDAQ Daily Markets. Guys, thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Hang in there, everyone.